Hello, everybody. It's great to be with you. Certainly been a while, and the dynamic of my situation has changed. So I have a responsibility and an obligation to continue putting out quality material to my subscribers. I'm going to continue with this. We're going to keep the dream alive here, and hopefully we'll have more segments for you here. Tonight, we've prepared an interesting presentation, and the title of this lecture is going to be Retrievals of the Third Kind, Cosmic Crashes, Corpses, and Cover-Ups. So it's Retrievals of the Third Kind, Cosmic Crashes, Corpses, and Cover-Ups. And I'll be presenting some very rare and never before seen drawings, and hopefully we'll go through these cases. We're not going to rush. We're going to take our time, and we'll go ahead and start our presentation here. And I want to go ahead and start over here. And we'll just look at this for a second here. UFO crash retrievals, the ultimate holy grail of ufology. So why do I call it the ultimate holy grail of ufology? Well, number of reasons. Number one, it's the crash retrievals that have the craft, the body, and the debris. Those are the three key elements, the physical evidence that we need to push this field forward. So that's why it's kind of an all-encompassing subject matter. If you have the crash retrievals, you've got the evidence, and we'll continue forward here. A couple of quick announcements before we begin here. Number one, the content of each case highlighted in this presentation has remained intact per the description of the original source. Number two, the identity of firsthand sources will be protected per Leonard Stringfield's original agreement with his military context. Number three, the visual aids used in this presentation are computer-generated forensic composite illustrations and sketches which originated from the specific details provided by Leonard's sources. Sources for the material covered in this presentation include the following, and this is a comprehensive list here. 3-star U.S. Air Force generals, U.S. Air Force fighter pilots, astronauts, commercial pilots, air traffic controllers, neurosurgeons, pathologists, theoretical physicists, and mathematicians, U.S. Army officers, U.S. Navy officers, military police, high-level Pentagon officials, top military brass, scientists and engineers who worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and other government facilities. So these are the caliber of the witness testimony that we're going to be investigating in part one of this four-part series. We'll go ahead and continue on here. A couple of quick quotes. Number one, since World War II, 50% of all documents created by the United States government have been classified top secret. Therefore, that means that we have essentially lost 50% of our national history. That's true. This is by Richard Dolan. It's a very good quote. Number two, UFO crash retrievals can't be real because if they were, I would have read about it in the local newspapers, general public. Number three, don't believe anything until it's officially denied by James Clarkson. And number four, there are not now, nor ever have been any extraterrestrial visitors or equipment on Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This is from the official U.S. Air Force press release, July 1980. And so I've got this thing down here. Oh yeah, we'll see about that. So we'll continue on here. So I want to introduce to you, and some of you already know who this man is. This is UFO crash retrieval expert Leonard Stringfield. And we'll just go through a couple of bullet items here, historical background. Leonard was born 1920. He grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio. By the time he graduated from high school in 1939, he had already memorized the entire dictionary. He joined the military as soon as he heard about the attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. After the war, he was employed by a chemical company in Ohio and retired after 30 years. Leonard wrote two books, Inside Saucer Post 3-0, 1957, and Situation Red, the UFO Siege. That was in 1977. And this next part here is what we want to drill down on here. His lecture on UFO crash retrievals at the 1978 MUFON Symposium in Dayton, Ohio, caused an international sensation. It really did, because this was the first time that this whole concept of UFO crashes and retrievals and bodies being kept away and hidden away by the United States government Back in 78, this was like a foreign type terminology. And when he presented this paper, which was titled Retrievals of the Third Kind, it highlighted 12 different crash retrieval cases with sources. There was a problem. Number one, there was really no sketches or illustrations within his paper. It was just basically technical reading. And number two, the identities of Leonard's sources remained under wraps and were kept anonymous. And that was the agreement that he had done with his sources, that he was allowed to present an important part of our national history, but the names of the sources had to be kept under wraps to protect them. And so that was kind of there was a little bit of a rift there between the public and what Leonard was presenting. Okay, last part here. He passed away in 1994. It's been so long now. We are absolutely racing the undertaker here, and we'll continue on. Here's an interesting newspaper clipping. Author continues quest for truth about UFOs. This is from Cincinnati Enquirer, July 19th, 1993. What I've collected has staggering implications for mankind. This would be the biggest thing since Christ. Really interesting. Well, it could be. If we could get physical evidence of actual ET visitation, actual real physical evidence, the bodies, the debris, the craft. If we could get this evidence, we could absolutely move this field forward. That's what we're looking for. That's absolutely what we're looking for. Next one. So if you want to really dive into these cases, you have to have this book in hand. You have to have this in your collection. It's UFO Crash Retrievals, The Complete Investigation Status Reports 1 through 7 by Leonard Stringfield, 1978 to 1994. And as I kind of mentioned earlier, as you go through this book, it is just packed full of all these crash retrieval cases, like the dates, the locations, but again, the names are kept under wraps to protect the identities of the witnesses. And that's something we want to look at here. Now, in addition to that particular book, it costs $65 on Amazon. It's well worth it. The dictation notes, the secretarial dictation notes were stored at Lunken Airport, Cincinnati, Ohio, which is the original location of the Leonard Stringfield 3-ring binders. There's about 65 of these binders. And when you put these binders together with that compendium report, now you've got a really good sense of what these crash retrieval cases are all about. These two things together is really a powerhouse of information. We'll continue on here. And so just to show you, back in 2013, MUFON allowed me to review this material. So I'm going to give you some boots on the ground research here. This previous slide is the beginning entryway of Lunken Airport. I'm going to take you inside the facility now. We're walking into the storage area, and I'm going to move forward here. Now we're inside where all the cabinets are, the file cabinets, and you can begin to see these 3-ring binders. I've laid them out on the table here, and I'll give you kind of a top view looking down. This is what the binders look like. There are 65 of these things, and these are the internal secretarial notes where all this information that was brought into the office to Leonard Stringfield. We're talking about sources, the people who are involved in putting these disc-shaped craft on 18-wheeler tractor trailers and shipping them to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. There's reports from pathologists who did the autopsies on the bodies. This is the hard-hitting information. And we'll do a top view. These are the actual 3-ring binders. And you can see, you can just turn them over, and it's just page after page of detailed information on the UFO crash retrievals from these sources. And what we want to do in this presentation is drill down into these cases from the original source material and really try to make these cases come alive through the use of drawings, sketches, illustrations, and full color 3D renderings. That's the goal. We want to preserve an important part of our national history and make these cases come alive. That's what we're going to do right here. And we'll move forward here with our presentation. Okay, so I've got this in here. After looking at this book and the 65 3-ring binders, I had compiled 119 crash retrieval cases. So here's what we're going to look at. Would you go to Las Vegas if you knew the odds were 119 to 1 in your favor, you can't lose. All we need is for one of these accounts to be true, and the case for the non-existence of UFO crash retrieval completely falls apart. So if you went to Vegas today and there were 119 slots and you put 118 chips on there, you can't lose. You're going to win. That's all we need to win this battle. We only need one of these cases to be actual authentic. That's all we need. All right. So I want to give credit to my good friend, Rudy Gardea. Every Saturday, we meet at a really nice coffee shop, and we spend 6 hours drawing these for everyone, for the entire world. This is a crusade for me. So pencil drawing sketches by Rudy Gardea, my good friend, rudygardeaart.com, and that's his website. So I definitely want to give credit to my good friend, Rudy. So let's begin here. Let's dive in here. This is the first crash retrieval case within this, and these are all numerically ordered by date. This is 1942, and this is long before Roswell. So we have to make the point that there were crash retrievals prior to Roswell. Absolutely, absolutely. So this is 1942. This is at an Army base somewhere north of Georgia. Even Leonard didn't know where this was, but this is at some type of an Army facility north of Georgia. The source material is UFO crash retrievals by Leonard Stringfield, page 319. And as this craft came down, it hit the side of one of the buildings and it tore open a hole breach on the side of the craft. And that's what you see here. This craft was about 15 feet wide. It was about 10 feet tall. It had a wraparound window that was kind of located on the forward section of the craft itself. There were markings seen on both the exterior and interior of the craft itself. There were 3 levels. The upper deck had a control panel console that had buttons and switches and levers and dials and what looked like display screens. Below that, there was kind of an indented floor section with what looked like 4 bar stools. And then on the bottom section, which is level 3, there was a bottom bay with a trap door. So those, in a nutshell, are the 3 levels of the craft. Now, it also stated within the report that there were 4 crew members taken alive, and that's what you see over here. They were about 5 feet tall, 90 pounds, large black eyes, milky white skin. So again, we've got this kind of emaciated look, 5 feet tall, oversized head, oversized eyes, slit for a mouth, kind of a minute nose. And we hear this same description again and again in these UFO crash retrieval cases. Next one. This is Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, 1946. This was a private, the source is a private who was involved in records management. Now, the source for this one is Space, The Final Frontier, page 59 by Clark McClellan. And I'm going to move forward here to show you the sources of where I'm getting this. This is the book here. And this is Space, The Final Frontier, Secrets NASA Doesn't Want You to Know by Clark McClellan. So that's kind of the source material where this particular case came from. And I'm going to move forward here, and you can see the original sketch within this report. Now, this craft was 15 feet in diameter. It was 7 feet tall. It had a kind of an 18-inch flat section around the outer circumference of the craft itself. And then wrapped around that outer circumference, there were these 15-inch by 10-inch wide rectangular windows. They wrapped around. And this craft came in from Arkansas by a railroad, boxcar kind of operation. That's how they brought this craft in. And you'll see here as we move forward, this was kind of the original drawing. And so I went ahead and moved forward and did kind of an AutoCAD rendering. This is my first pass at doing an AutoCAD drawing of this craft. And you'll notice in the original report, it states that number 1, there were no rivets, there were no wells, no seams, no hatches. On the interior, there were no seats, there were no control panels. It was like an antiseptically sterile environment. Now, in the very center of this craft, there was a column that was about 3 feet in diameter that rose from the base of the craft on the interior all the way up to the upper roof of the craft. And if you look on the right-hand corner, upper right-hand corner, I've peeled back the skin and I give you a cutaway drawing that shows you this central column cut back. Now, look very carefully here. And I'll try to give you a little bit of a view here. If you look over here, which would be right about there, you'll see that there is a small red dot on the Windows section. And this is the attempted point of entry. So when this private got to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, he met his friend who is an MP who brought him in to the hangar facility. And they're looking at this 15-foot diameter dish-shaped craft. It's sitting on the hangar floor. There was a tarp nearby. And then what he said is that there was an electric drill that had a diamond tip drill bit inside. And what they were trying to do is they were trying to breach the hull of the craft on this window section with this diamond tip drill bit. And you know what? They couldn't do it. They failed. So I've got at least 3 cases now of white lab coat technicians working desperately to breach the hull of these craft, at least 3 separate cases. So we can see some pattern recognition here. Now, this is the full color rendering by my good friend, Joseph Wraith. He gets credit for doing this, and he's just done a fantastic job. Just beautiful job here. Again, no rivets, no welds, no seams, no hatches, kind of a polished exterior. And again, you can see the red dot on the window is the attempted point of entry on this craft. So again, 1946, before Roswell. If this is true, which we really believe it is true, and we hear about all these congressional hearings going on in Congress, and they keep on talking about how we don't know what these are. We don't know where they're from, and we don't have any physical debris. That's not what we're showing here. That's not what we're showing here at all. They do have the debris. They do have the craft. They do have the bodies. So someone is playing us, but we won't let them get away with that. We're going to continue on here. So this was my first attempt at rendering this craft. And now let me take you to a real professional. What you want on your team to fully illustrate these 3D renderings is you want someone who works within the medical illustration industry, someone who works on forensic muscle tissue and jawbone structure and facial structure on your skull. That's the kind of person you want on your team. If you can model up a human skull with muscle tissue, then you can certainly model up these craft. And that's what Joseph Wraith has done. I'm going to go ahead and forward. I'm going to turn myself off and I'm going to move forward. This is the drawing by Rudy Gardea that shows you what this might have looked like as you walked in here. You can see the tarp on the side. We've got the toolbox open. We've got the electric drill and then this diamond tip drill bit that they were desperately trying to breach the hull of this craft. Now, what would this look like inside the hangar if we were there, if we could see this in full color? That's where I want to take you right now. Here it is, and this is the full color rendering, and you can get an idea of what it might have looked like. We have got to get to these craft. We've got to get this physical evidence. We can't wait anymore. All right, next case. Wright Field, Dayton, Ohio, 1946, UFO crash retrievals, pages 242, 243. Again, this is pre-Roswell. We've already got two under our belt now. We're on our 3rd one. Let's move forward here. And this has to do with a young boy who was 6 years old. His father worked at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. And one day his father brought the 6-year-old son to the base, and they go inside one of these hangars, and connected to this hangar facility is an adjoining cafeteria separated by kind of a door. And so he brings his 6-year-old son into this cafeteria area. And there's a janitor who is kind of standing next to this vintage 1946 soda pop vending machine that you see here. And he kind of turns over to the 6-year-old boy and said, "Son, would you like a soda pop?" And he said, "Yes, I would like one." And so he asked permission from his father. His father granted it. So he turned back to the janitor. The janitor gave him a soda pop. Now, while all this is going on, someone kind of went through this cafeteria door, and this 6-year-old boy got a sneak peek inside this hangar facility. And I'm going to take you to the drawing here by Rudy. This is one of our original preliminary sketches. So here's this 6-year-old boy looking through this doorway window into this hangar. What does he see here? Let's do another one here. The door is open and he sees this interesting 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy. There's 2 of them. And They have a strange type mechanical structure on top that's covered by a tarp. I don't know what that is. Some type of structure was tarped on both of these 18-wheeler tractor trailers. There was a Jeep inside there. And then sitting on the floor next to these 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboys is a dish-shaped craft that has tripod landing gear. Now let's take you through the entire process here, and let's move on to the next one here. Here was the first pass drawing by Rudy that shows you what this craft looked like. It kind of had this outer ring with a band on it, and then there were between 3 and 4 bodies that were laying on the floor next to the dish-shaped craft. So let's do the final rendering. Let me take you inside the scene now as the final rendering here. And we've got our technical specs down on the bottom here. Craft measured about 20 feet in diameter with tripod landing gear legs and a flat band wrapped around its outer circumference. 3 small bodies were recovered. Again, this is pre-Roswell. This is at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. So if you look off to the left, you can see the tail end of one of these 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy trucks. Off to the right, we've got the same one. It's covering this tarp debris. In the background, you can see this boy looking through this doorway here. It's just great. It's just great. We spent so much time on the back wall of this to give you like an inside view of what this craft looked like inside the hangar here. Now in the foreground off to the left, we've got 3 bodies here, and it's the same type motif, 3.5 to 4 feet tall, oversized head, oversized eyes, slit for a mouth, minute nose. Again, 1946. Let's move to the next case here. Okay. White Sands Missile Range, July 1947. So now we're at the same time frame as Roswell. The source on this is UFO Crash Retrievals, page 196 by Leonard Stringfield. Now take a look at this map here. This is White Sands Missile Range. This craft came down on the north part of White Sands Missile Range. That's what we're going to focus in on here. And this was at night. There was a convoy of military vehicles that arrived at the scene. And when they got there, this is what they saw. This was about 150 feet in diameter, tipped up at about a 20-degree angle, and it was sitting on the White Sands northern section of the facility. Now, I also want to point out that within this report, it stated that the craft was very well illuminated. They had mobile spotlights shining on this craft. They had kind of a little bit more substantial floodlights and spotlights shining on this. Now, there were a few tents off to the right-hand side, a 6x6 troop transport. And then if you look closely, there are men with Geiger counters around the craft itself. I'm going to hide myself so you can get kind of a better view here. And the report also stated that they were taking still photography, and in addition to the still photography, they were taking motion picture film reels of this entire retrieval operation. Can you imagine what this might have looked like? And I want to know is, where are the still photos and where are the motion picture film reels? Because what we're going to do is we're going to give that information to the senators and congressmen that don't have a clue about this, and we're going to give them the actual evidence they need to proceed forward with these congressional hearings. And we'll go ahead and continue on to the next case here. This is interesting. UFO crash retrieval, 1947, seen in a warehouse at Berkeley University. Source, UFO crash retrievals, page 197. So let's set the scene here. You've got this kind of white lab coat technician. He's standing in the back section of a warehouse building, and this is at Berkeley University, while this 18-wheeler tractor trailer lowboy backs itself into this facility, and he's watching all this as this craft is coming in. Now, what does this thing look like? What does this thing look like? What does this craft look like? Let's take you there. This is what the craft looked like. It was an egg-shaped craft, about 30 feet across, 15 feet high. Now, I want to mention that in the report, it states that this egg-shaped craft had a massive hull breach on one side. And then off to the right, there was another hull breach that had debris that was sticking out, kind of like shrapnel and everything. And he got an interior view of what it looked like in the inside. And he said that at the very core of this craft was about a 3-foot diameter sphere. At the forward section of this egg-shaped craft, there was a bulkhead that had kind of a composite material. And then surrounding the outer circumference of this 3-foot diameter sphere was another bulkhead that wrapped around and followed the curvature of the sphere itself. Now, here's my question. Is this a UFO on its own, or is this the propulsion system for a much larger craft? Like it suffered and sustained an internal explosion. That's the definition and terminology that this technician had used in this particular case. Now, let's move on to this case. This is a carrot patch south of Salinas, California, July, August 1947. The eyewitnesses were 2 19-year-old boys who were working in a nearby field. Leonard Stringfield is the source, dictation notes. That's where I got this information. So they're working in this nearby field. And then they come back the next morning, and the foreman alerts to them that something had come down the night previously. And I want to show you what this craft actually looks like here. We'll move on. Here's the original sketch that came within the dictation notes. So this craft was 9 feet in diameter. It was 4 feet tall. Wrapped around the outer circumference of the craft were these double row of indented windows that you could not look through. So again, this is the original sketch from the report. I'm going to take you to my AutoCAD drawing. So again, 9 feet in diameter, 4 feet tall, with these strange double row of rectangular indented windows. These things keep popping up again. I keep hearing about double row of indented windows. Let's go to a full color rendering here. Here was the first pass on what this craft actually looks like. And by the time these 2 boys got to this facility, one of them said, you know what? I'm going to walk up to this thing. I want to get a real good close look at this craft. And he walked up and he kicked the side of it with his boot. He actually kicked the side of this craft. And you can imagine what that must have been like. At this time, while all this is going on, a military convoy arrives on the scene. They've got rifles. They're securing the area. They usher these 2 boys away, about 1/8 of a mile away, but they weren't too far away where they were not able to see the retrieval operation. They got to see all of the operation, the entire operation. And we have the report to back this up within the Stringfield dictation notes. So here is the Rudy Gardea representation of what this retrieval looks like. So off to the left-hand side here, you can see this military truck, vintage correct, 6x6 troop transport with kind of a lowboy tractor trailer off to the side. We've got a Jeep here. We've got the MP securing the area. And then in this carrot patch, we've got this dish-shaped craft with these indented windows. Now, I'm working with the Cousin brothers on doing an interesting series on UFO crash retrievals. Much more information about this case will be revealed within that series here, and we'll move on to our next case. So this is interesting. The sighting here, set up here, this is 1951. Prior to 1951, somewhere in the Sierra Madre Valley, Mexico mountain range. So could have been 48, 49, somewhere in that time frame. This is UFO crash retrievals, page 32. And this involves a construction worker who was busy involved in a scene. He was working on this construction site when all of a sudden, an American C-119 flying boxcar kind of comes down in this dirt area, and they begin this retrieval operation. And the U.S. Army personnel walk over to this construction worker and ask for his assistance. They actually asked for his assistance in retrieving this dish-shaped craft. So you can imagine the C-119 here, the aft cargo bays are open. They've got a ramp now, and they're retrieving this 9-foot diameter dish-shaped craft up on this ramp, and he's helping him do all this operation. So let's, I'm going to turn myself off. I'm going to take you to the scene now. And this is what it looks like on the aft cargo bay. We did some calculations, and we've discovered that the craft was approximately 9 feet in diameter, because we want to have clearance on either side of the cargo bay entry doors. So the cargo bay is 9 feet, 10 inches across. So that means the maximum diameter of the craft itself could be about 9 feet, which would allow about 5 inches of clearance on either side. So let's move forward here. And now we're looking at the retrieval operation. We've got both cargo bay doors open. Again, credit goes to Rudy Gardea. And now they're pushing this craft up on the ramp. We've got a cable. They're bringing it in. They're securing the operation, and then they're flying out. Now, he also mentioned that he saw two bodies that had burned skin on their faces. They were black in color, kind of like a charred black. And when he touched their faces, it's almost like the skin just came right off. And so I want to mention that there were bodies retrieved in this crash retrieval case. Okay, next one. UFO, Pentagon 1952. This is UFO crash retrievals, page 152, case 1 by Leonard Stringfield. And this happened at the Pentagon in 1952. This involves a woman who worked at the Pentagon, and she went down to an underground basement and accidentally bumped into an off-limits room. And I want to take you inside this room. What did it look like? Well, the report describes kind of like it was a dimly lit, dark room. It was kind of dusty and musty. You can kind of imagine it here. There were some crates and boxes off to the side, and she kind of like does a 180-degree turn, and she runs into something. What does she see? She actually sees a quote unquote pickled alien in a jar. That's the description was given. A pickled alien in a glass jar. And she's just shocked. You can imagine she's just shocked. And within about 10 seconds, she feels this hand grabbed onto her shoulder, her upper arm, and it was an MP telling her to get out of there immediately. But she did actually see this. So again, it's her word against the government, against these congressional hearings when they say that we don't have any evidence. This woman is telling us that she has seen the bodies. She's seen the actual evidence. Here's an illustration by Joseph Wraith. This may have been what it looked like if you were there that day. So she got in a lot of trouble, but she was brave enough to come forward and state that she did, in point of fact, see this pickled alien. Okay, next one. And I really like this one. Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, 1953. And this involves a warrant officer. This is abstract number 8. This involves a warrant officer, 1953, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. He was at the right place at the right time when this cargo DC-7, this is a 4-engine DC-7, it taxis onto the tarmac at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This is at night. The hangar doors open up. This DC-7 taxis is inside. Immediately, the hangar doors close. And I want to take you inside the hangar doors and show you what he actually saw according to the report. And again, I want to give my source where I'm getting this information. This is UFO Crash Retrievals, page 15, abstract number 8. So you can kind of follow along if you get this publication and read the entire detailed account. So here is, it might have been one of these hangars. I don't know exactly which hangar it was, but I'm showing you this is Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. These are the interesting hangar. I've actually been in this hangar right here with the arrow. I've actually been inside there. Could have been that one. So let's open up the hangar door. Let's go inside. And what did this warrant officer see here? Okay, I've included this as well. This is a DC-7. And on the aft section of the port side of the aircraft, which is the left side here, there's this massive cargo bay door that opened up, and there was basically a heavy duty forklift. Now, this is all taking place inside the hangar. I just want to show you a very accurate representation of what this might have looked like. So on this pallet, this forklift brings down 5 wooden crates. There are 3 crates on top with their top lids taken off, and this warrant officer got a look inside these crates. What did he see? Let's take you there. Let's take you inside here. He got to see inside these crates, and he said that he saw these humanoid-looking bodies. They were about 3.5 feet tall. They were wearing a black, tight-fitting flight suit. They had oversized head, oversized eyes, slit for a mouth, minute nose, and one of them, he said, was female. That's interesting. We don't hear too much about that. He also mentioned that these bodies were being suspended off the bottom of the wooden boxes by kind of this white netting material that protected them from the freezer burn of the dry ice below. And so that's what he mentioned. So you can see these crates with the tops taken off. And now let's go even one further. Let's take it even from, let's make this color. Let's make this come alive. Let me take you to a Joseph Wraith illustration here. Now we're inside, we're looking at this particular case. We've got the forklift, we've got the 5 crates, the tops are lifted off. You can see the cargo bay is open. And now we've even got this steam and residue coming up and emanating from this dry ice below. And these are what the bodies look like per the description. Now let's get a top view looking down while this warrant officer is looking inside these crates here. And this is the top view looking down. And this is, again, the evidence is here. So this, what I wanted to present in this part 1 of this Retrievals of the Third Kind series is just kind of the very first section. I've got a lot of these. We've got enough cases to make it to the next ice age here. And what we're going to do in this series is we're going to continue to present these drawings, these sketches, these illustrations, these full color renderings from these original witnesses, the firsthand witnesses that saw the bodies, that handled the debris, that were on the retrieval teams that brought these UFOs, put them on 18-wheeler tractor trailers, and sent them to these covert military facilities, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Eglin Air Force Base, Holloman Air Force Base, MacDill Air Force Base, get inside these facilities by the use of illustrations, make these cases come alive. And I absolutely want to thank you for your attention. I'm going to continue on a part 2, and thank you so much for your attention.